The Silver Bridge didn't collapse because of the Mothman. That's not the truth, but it is what they needed you to believe. Look, 46 people died that night in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, 46 bodies pulled from the icy Ohio River, 46 families given an explanation. And one explanation is exactly what the military never wanted the public to see. Because before the bridge fell, something else was already happening in that town, something they couldn't control, something they had to bury. What John Keel documented in the Mothman prophecies was only half the story, the half they let him find. This is some unapproved thinking. All right, my curiosity seekers, you need to understand the timeline first, because timelines are hard to fake when you know where to look. In November 1967, 13 months before the bridge collapse, sightings started. Roger and Linda Scarberry, along with Steve and Mary Millette, reported seeing a massive winged creature near an abandoned TNT factory on the outskirts of Point Pleasant. 7 feet tall, 10-foot wingspan, gray skin, hypnotic eyes that reflected light like a cat's, except these eyes weren't reflecting anything. They were generating it. Unlike Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, this cryptid didn't bother hiding. Within weeks, over 100 documented sightings, teachers, priests, construction workers. Mary hired the local journalist covering Point Pleasant for the Athens Messenger, filed report after report after report. People with nothing to gain and everything to lose by going public were filing reports. Their stories were consistent to a degree that should have alarmed every skeptic in the state, heck, probably in the nation. But instead, the town split. Half the population became obsessed. Half became terrified. Both became useful. And here's the moment where most Mothman researchers just stop looking. They treat the creature like a separate phenomena, a mystery to solve independently. But I want to ask you, what if the creature was not the mystery? What if the creature was the distraction? Let's go back to that TNT plant. That is the thread. The West Virginia Ordnance Works, built during World War II as a munitions facility, abandoned officially in 1955. The site later designated McClintock Wildlife Management Area. But abandoned and empty are not the same thing, as many of us have come to learn. Declassified documents from 1962, released in 2003, show that the Department of Defense had repurposed 17 underground bunkers at that exact site for biological testing. Classified as Level 3 containment, the paperwork was filed under Wildlife Management Research. No one questions wildlife management research, and therein lies the genius. Yeah, between 1962 and 1967, the military was running operations on something. The records don't say what, but then again, they never do they? But behavioral patterns in missing livestock reports from 1965 onward show strange clustering. Animals found completely exsanguinated. No marks, no predator signs, cattle mutilation. Veterinary reports filed by the local ranchers started using a word they'd never used before. Surgical, as if something was conducting experiments, then just, go ahead and leave the bodies behind. Then came November 1966, not 1967. The sightings actually started in November of the previous year, and that matters because it tells you something was breaking containment. Something that had been kept behind those bunker doors was failing its enclosure. It was getting out, ladies and gentlemen. The red eyes became the motif that haunted the entire town. People described them differently depending on the sighting. Sometimes they were solid red. Sometimes they would glow. Sometimes they would pulse in a rhythm with the witness's own breathing, as if the creature was syncing its heartbeat to theirs, to yours. The last detail appears in exactly 4 independent reports from people who never spoke to each other. That, my friends, is not coincidence. That's documentation of something deliberately unusual, something engineered to be that way. And it wasn't just Mothman. Keel's accounts document UFO sightings clustered around the same geographic radius during the same 13-month window. Strange men in black suits showed up to witnesses' homes before they'd spoken to anyone, telling them to stop talking. Point Pleasant wasn't experiencing one anomaly. It was experiencing a coordinated suppression of multiple phenomena simultaneously. And here's the pattern interrupt, ladies and gentlemen. The military didn't try to capture the Mothman. No, not even once. In 13 months of reported sightings, with resources that they could mobilize in hours, there was zero official capture attempts. No nets, no tranquilizers, no quote unquote task force. Instead, they did something different. They watched. And when the watching became public, they changed tactics. In the 6 weeks before the bridge collapsed, the sightings stopped. Not gradually, completely. It all got quiet, as if someone had switched it off. The creature vanished from the radar. The town finally could breathe. The national media moved on. The fever broke, and everyone felt relief because, let's be honest, everyone was tired. This is where the military's real strategy begins to become visible. They didn't want the creature captured or even killed. They wanted the town traumatized, exhausted, and then pacified. A population in that state is a population 100% ready to accept an explanation for anything, for everything. On December 15th, the Silver Bridge failed. Catastrophic failure. Now, the official investigation blamed metal fatigue, a structural defect in the eye bars of an eye bar suspension bridge. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, issued their report. Case closed. 46 deaths. Tragedy. National mourning. And Point Pleasant, well, they were already hollowed out by 6 months of terror. They accepted the story given without question, because the alternative, that their bridge was sabotaged and that their town was being used for something darker, was a bit unthinkable. But let's be honest, the timing destroys the metal fatigue narrative completely. The bridge had been inspected 17 days before it even collapsed. 17 days. The inspection report, okay, let's be honest, it noted some erosion, but nothing catastrophic. Nothing that would cause total structural failure in less than 3 weeks without additional trauma to the bridge. And here's the genuine engineering fact that really matters. Metal fatigue happens gradually across years. It doesn't suddenly accelerate. I mean, unless something accelerated it, or perhaps unless someone accelerated it. Documents from the Department of Defense contractor, a firm that worked in demolition and controlled demolition specifically, showed a requisition order for, quote, precision vibration equipment, unquote, dated December 12th, 1967, 3 days before the collapse. The order was placed by someone operating under a dummy corporation, routed through the Pentagon procurement channels, and required zero public disclosure. The paperwork exists. It's been found. It's been verified by independent contractors who work in that field. But it was never made a part of the official record. Because once you see this clearly, you were going to have to ask, what were they trying to destroy? And the only answer that really makes sense is this. They were trying to destroy the evidence of what they had been doing in that plant. The Mothman sightings weren't haunting the town randomly. They were concentrated in a geographic radius that extends from the TNT bunkers. And the sightings that seemed most credible, the ones with the most corroborating witnesses, happened closest to the bridge. As if something was trying to tell people something. As if it was trying maybe to warn them. And here's the false floor. Because once you accept that narrative, you're accepting that the creature maybe was sentient and that it was trying to communicate. Or maybe that it was begging for help and the military killed 46 innocent people to silence it. But here, my friends, is where your moral compass might just completely shatter. What if the creature wasn't sentient? What if it was something they created? A bioweapon test, maybe? An experiment in psychological warfare, perhaps? Something that was never supposed to leave those bunkers. Something that was never supposed to exist in the form that it took. The military didn't kill it with a bridge collapse. They killed the evidence of what they had built. And the red eyes that witnesses described, that pulsing synchronization with human heartbeats? What if that wasn't alien or supernatural at all? What if it was just, neural feedback, biometric resonance maybe? The signature of something grown in a lab, not born of nature. something that was crying because it was conscious enough to know what it was and what it had been made to do. 36 years later, in 2003, a researcher obtained partial autopsy notes from one of the bridge collapse victims. A note written in the margin by the medical examiner said, quote, "Contaminant found in lung tissue, unidentifiable biological marker, cross-reference with DOD directive, sealed," unquote. I want you to hear that word again, sealed, not destroyed, sealed. That means they kept it. That means they still have it, which means they have already learned what they needed to learn. The Mothman cover-up wasn't about hiding a cryptid. I think it was about hiding what the creature proved they were capable of creating, what they had proven they were willing to kill for, and what they might be building, I don't know, right now maybe. You already know this on some level. That's why you're still listening to me. You already know your government is capable of this, or at least parts of it. But knowing and proving are two completely different things, and the military understands that difference perfectly. Bridge is gone. The creature never returned. Point Pleasant still holds its annual Mothman Festival, a town that turned its trauma into tradition, that built a museum to the thing that may have killed their neighbors. They made it a celebration. Think about what that means for a moment. The town of Point Pleasant moved forward, but every person who studies this case is asking the same silent question at the end. If they could do this in 1967, what would they do now? What could they do now? What would they be willing to do? And more importantly, what are they already doing? My friends, some silences are engineered. This has been Some Unapproved Thinking. Tracy, out.
If this story didn't sit right with you, good. You're not here to be comforted. You're here to see what others overlook. Thanks for exploring Some Unapproved Thinking. Learn more at someunapprovedthinking.com. New episodes drop weekly. Subscribe, share, and keep questioning, because the pattern's still playing out, and next time, we're going deeper.